Hi, Amanda. Just want to introduce you to everybody watching. Say hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview just for potential clients that are watching, where they can get a little bit more of a window or insight into what it's like to be a client and what you gained in your time with me.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm just going to dive right into these questions and we'll go from there. Okay.
All right.
Cool. All right. So we're just going to start with, was there a time in your life when you wouldn't have considered reaching out for help? Maybe elaborate a little bit on that and why, what that looked like, if so.
Right. Well, the main reason would be because I was living life for myself, or I'm sorry, for other people, that like I wasn't setting that time aside for myself. And so I didn't even think about utilizing somebody to help me do anything because I had such poor boundaries that it was all about everybody else. So
Sure.
I didn't even think about seeking help or assistance,
Sure, because you were living your life just to either please other people, prioritizing them over your own health and well-being.
Right.
Your time management probably was filled with either working or helping others.
Oh yeah, and the time that I did have, I was so exhausted that I didn't feel like, working on myself.
Sure. So what changed when you did finally ask out or reach out to ask for help?
Well, a few years ago, I actually up and quit my full-time job. And I promised myself that I would, or I committed to myself to work on my whole being. So that, was, my spiritual health, my physical health, my mental health, trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a living as a career. So I was given the opportunity I just stopped and reassessed, and then I was able to have the time to seek.
Sure, getting that help that you needed.
Right.
So for those, and there's a couple points I want to piggyback off of that you mentioned that'll kind of lead us into some of these next questions. But before I do that, just want to tell all of our viewers, for those of you who read a little bit more on my site or even went to my website, you'll know that I was a mental health counselor for several years. I have a master's in clinical mental health, and I actually met Amanda as a counseling client at my previous job. And then I ended up leaving that. And as most of you know, I have since just recently switched to full-time life coaching. I decided not to continue with my licensure for mental health counseling, just faced some burnout and some personal things happening in my life that created some fatigue, adrenal fatigue, things like that, which you actually know about that because part of what you came in for that we eventually worked on was some of that career exploration stuff. The job you had was, kicking your butt more or less.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit more about that as one of the specific things you did get help for, and you did ask for help in our time. And really just to tell everyone else too, that is a life coaching skill that I offer, which is now one of the programs on my website, is the career exploration. So maybe talk a little bit about that and some of your own burnout and what you experienced with that.
Yeah, so I went to college and I earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. And while I was doing that, I had a full-time job at retail. And I, throughout that, after I got my degree, I continued with the retail, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my degree in psychology. And so it just kind of sat on the back burner. And I worked this job mostly just to have a job as I was focusing on my family, rather than myself.
Sure.
And I got to where everybody was like, you should be a manager. You'd be a really great manager. You should be in management. And I kept denying it. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I finally did it. and I did really well at it, but I reached burnout because I was doing everything for everybody, because not just my family, now I'm doing things for a company,
Yeah.
you know, and so like I got to extreme burnout to the point where I just up and quit my job. I didn't have anything lined up. I just quit, you know?
Yeah.
So that was pretty extreme burnout. Like I hope I never get to that place again. And thankfully, you know, with your help, I've learned throughout the last couple years different skills and techniques, right?
Yeah. Great.
But yeah, so doing this career exploration, like that was, I think, what do you call it? Like not a milestone,
Like a mile
like a turning point. Yeah, of I didn't know what I wanted to do. I always thought that like, yeah, I'd be a good manager and work in retail, and that was great. But I always wanted to do something with my degree in psychology and work with people. And like I was pursuing to be a counselor, you know, with that. But I didn't know. I was weighing. I was like, what do I do? And I didn't know. So by doing this exploration that we did together with the test, it was able to confirm, yep, like there's these two, but then I had to decide, well, which way do I go?
Right. Do you go back to school? Do you pursue a master's? I mean, there was a lot involved with which direction to go.
Right. And I know that you offer like extended sessions, because that was really, you know, helpful for me, because I knew what I fit into the category, but then we were able to like sit down and break it down of like, okay, so under entrepreneur at this level, you can do X, Y, and Z. And then over here in social, I think was a category was social, right? Like this is what you could do at this level with X, Y, and Z. Like, are you willing to go back to school or not? And then I was able to then, after some time of still debating, I was able to like link them together. So like, what does this and this do together, like to combine them? Yeah. And so here I am now, a couple years later, I'm working on my certification for life coach, because I was able to have my own business and under the psychology category of not being a counselor, but you know, stepping it down as a life coach. So I'm able to do the two things that I scored high with, that like matched my
your results and stuff. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it is interesting for, you know, our viewers to hear that, that is, because that was going to be my next question, you know, what are you doing currently? You know, because you searched for a while for different jobs, and even just something just to get your foot in the door,
right.
Getting a paycheck again, things like that, in the midst of pursuing the life coaching. So it is interesting that, you know, that you are, you know, starting your own life coaching business, because as I'm a life coach, and I have like, it's just kind of cool for me to see me helping you through that assessment, and then how far you've come up till now. So for our viewers, you know, realize that, you know, you don't just get these results. And like Amanda said, those follow-up sessions are really important, because this has been several years in the making, really, too. It wasn't just like she decided to be a life coach and then in 3 weeks, boom, she was. It was a matter of just even the research of, you know, finding where to get your certification, what schools were more accredited than others, all of those things, you know. And in the meantime, you know, you got a job doing something you don't want to do long term, but at least something to pay the bills in the meantime too, which is really cool, again, to see that journey.
Right.
So so as far as the career exploration, a lot of people do, when they kind of inquire with me, a lot of them want like a one-stop shop. That's been happening a lot lately too, where people just want one service session with me and then move on, which I am in the midst of creating, because I'm the type of person that I have grown a lot in the past couple decades where now I'm just a little bit more flexible with, what do people want? Let me try to create that, and not just offer what I think that they need. So I am in the midst of creating a one-stop shop for their career exploration. Oh, that was a mouthful. But it would be several hours just because the assessment, as you know, I mean, that alone took at least an hour and a half, more really
Right.
realistically like 2.
Yeah, it was closer to 2.
Yeah, so I am trying to prepare something where it would be like something like 3.5 hours, take a small break in there in between. But for everyone, and again, this isn't about, oh, I want to lock them in to get them to pay for more sessions. Realistically, it's more organic to have those follow-ups. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Yeah, I think that one-stop shop would be great for people who are like at square one, who like don't know where they're heading, right?
Sure.
But then I think the exploration further with those other packages is great, because then you're able to like break it down more and like, where should I go from here? And
Yeah.
like, what do I really want? And
Yeah.
doing the research.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our viewers too, actually, you and I are in the midst of kind of, now that you're not my client anymore, you're off doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, where we're kind of partnering with some of that career stuff, where I send them to you for some of the job searching stuff later on in the
Right.
program. So
Mhm.
that's stuff that we're kind of mapping out and panning out for those of you who are maybe interested in that, where we're going to kind of tag team. I'm still going to do the bulk of it with you, but then Amanda would have a couple sessions with you as well as part of that program. So unless you have any other points or comments to highlight the career exploration stuff, could you also talk a little bit about some of the other life coaching programs or categories that I helped you with in our time together, just to let people know, to have an inside view. And again, if you have anything left to say about the career stuff,
Right.
you go ahead and jump in.
No, I think I can answer that question, because your boundaries curriculum was a huge part of my growth. And it's something that I'm still, I think everybody is working on creating better and healthy boundaries.
Absolutely.
But like, I felt like I didn't have, like, not that I could have been the worst, but like, I didn't have very many healthy boundaries. And I don't even think that I really knew the definition of like what a boundary was,
Sure.
like in terms of like mental health and all that.
Yeah.
And so like this really broke it down, and I was able to like identify, like, I didn't even know that was a poor boundary,
Sure.
and then I was able to work through that. And then also it's working through like, what can you do not only for yourself, but like the people that you're setting these boundaries with, because, there's going to be like, what would you call it? Like feedback or like pushback from the people that you're trying to create this healthy relationship with, but you've been stuck in this unhealthy one for so long, like, so there's more to just saying like, oh, I want to make this boundary with this person, but there's more to it that, I don't think that it's easy to do yourself.
Sure. There's that resistance is the term, right?
Oh yeah, and the accountability of having somebody helping you through that too.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. So for me anyway, that, that was extremely important, because I was able to come and be like, hey, this is what I've done, and like, this is what's happening because of it.
Yeah.
And you were able to like provide the tools and resources and what you needed, or what I needed.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And I hope, and it's hard for viewers to like get the full scope, but that's why we're at least doing this, to give them an inside view of, as you're talking about the boundaries training. It's interesting, hearing your feedback and being, on this journey with you, having a front row seat for several years. It's funny because the boundaries training originated in my clinical internship. So when I was done with my schooling and had that last stretch where you have to finish so many hours of counseling clients underneath a supervisor, you're not getting paid. I developed that program during that time because I had in all my supervision meetings with my my supervisor, she kept hearing me use the word boundaries, where so many people needed it, whether it was with time management, people that were workaholics and burning out, or they were in specific relationships that were unhealthy and trying to navigate that. You know, she was the one that encouraged me to create that program. So it's all research based. There's very few things in there that's original to me. Some of them are where I came up with it, but the majority of it is resources I pulled from different people in the field who've been in the field for decades. So, you know, we know it was working even before I got my hands on it. But I made it just for a workshop. It was like people came in once a week. I think it was for 3 weeks straight. And it was a group of people. So it was a psychoeducational workshop where there were little pockets where they would like work together or have discussion, but most of it was presenting, me presenting the material to them. And it was just really, it morphed over time into me not only utilizing it one-on-one with my clients, but also those follow-up sessions. I just added those within the last year to my website for those of you who've checked it out. If not, maybe pause and head over there real quick, where I have so many clients, yourself included, that have later on been like, okay, I know we worked on boundaries a while ago. I've got some things to run by you. So now I just literally have follow-up sessions where I've marked down the price too. So it's at a more affordable price. People can call me weeks, months. Some people I've heard from a year later, you know, hey, can we set up a couple of sessions? I've got a couple of things to run by you. So, you know, here I'm kind of outlining it from a marketing standpoint, but building off of what you're saying, I've just kind of tried to adjust what I have to offer according to what people need. So I think that is important for people to realize, like, yes, you might go through the 6 sessions or the 8 session package, but it doesn't end there.
Right. Right. And I think too, to feed off of that too, is that like, no matter what stage you are in like learning and creating healthy boundaries, like, there's people that, you know, who have probably been going through curriculum, reading all the books and everything for years and have created healthy boundaries, but there's going to be some slip ups that, you know, you still might need that help.
I understand. Yeah.
Right. I think all of us, right?
Absolutely.
So I think at any point it's good material, you know, to be refreshed with and like, because, you know, I've been with you for so long, like, here's a resource here. There's like, depending on what the boundary is, like, here's another resource, here's a book, here's, you know, different things that you have that to offer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for kind of highlighting some of what worked for you, what you utilized in your time with me, and how it helped you. I think to touch on one of the last things, just you know, we could probably talk for hours about all the different things that the time we've spent together and, you know, the breakthroughs and stuff like that. But I'd like to highlight the boundaries also do play into how we spend our time, how we live our lives, right? You know, it's kind of like when you go to a funeral or you hear someone went to a funeral and you hear people talk about how that person was remembered. What were they known for? You know, and that's the question I always ask my people who come in and they don't really know what they need help with, but they're like, I'm living my life and I'm not happy. Like, I don't know where to go from here. That's where we begin to break down values clarification and how we spend our time. So I had done some of that with you, which I do with basically all of my clients, but now I've created a program. It's called Changing Directions. It's again on my website. But it's very specific to, okay, how are you living your life? Are you living it for other people to make other people happy? You know, what are you known for? What do people, when they think of you, they automatically, what do they say? Oh, she loves this, or she does this with her time, or she's working toward this goal. And then asking ourselves, you know, is this true to who I am? And so often it's not. And none of us are perfect. I mean, I help people with this. I have to walk myself through this values clarification. I do it annually.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do it a little bit more than that, maybe twice a year if I'm, entering a new stage or have taken a detour in my life. As I've been married for a couple of years now. So
Right.
being newly married, things like that, where I do have to reevaluate. So that seemed to help you with goal setting and things like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's what we first started with. Like the first, I would say, I don't know, after like assessment and everything, like the values are the first thing that we started with. Because, I myself, or with stuff that I'm doing with my clients, is like checking with your values. Are you doing what lines up with that? And
Exactly.
I was not. And so
Sure.
like by identifying that, I was able to, I mean, again, like you had said, I'm not perfect, but like I'm far better off than I was before, because I was able to identify my values and work towards like what is missing that's I'm not living my life according to.
Sure. Absolutely. So important, right?
Right.
And I love what you said. You're not, maybe I'm going to change the wording a little, like I'm not maybe exactly where I want to be, but man, I'm not where I was before.
Right.
And that's like, overall, that's just like what I tell everyone all the time, and myself. Right.
Right.
Certain things we do need a little bit of a kick in the butt from someone, some motivation,
Right.
some things we do procrastinate, but most of the time we're our worst critic, our own worst
Right.
critic. So it is important, I think, to say, okay, yeah, no, I am going to celebrate how far I have come, but there's
Right.
always a little bit of room for accountability or improvement.
Right. Well, and like having a life coach walking with you through that, you might be like walk in or turn on, your camera here and think like, oh, I'm like, things are not going the way I want, like I'm failing. But then you have somebody that's, walking with you through this that can be like, but look at what you've done.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Look how far you've come. And yeah, and we all need those reminders, right?
right.
Absolutely. I have a counselor, and I would not be where I am today without the coaches, mentors, and counselors I've had through the years. And I'm getting real, people. This is partly who I am. That's why I love that y'all are watching this video before you sign up. But just in session yesterday, I worked with this counselor for, I think, January of last year. So we're just past our year together. And she just reminded me, she goes, are you doubting yourself a little bit in this area? Because a reoccurring relationship issue came back up in my life through a family member. And she's like, you sound really like firm with the choices you've made, but is there a little bit of doubt? And I'm just like, yeah, so she had to remind me like of past scenarios and where I was at 6 months ago, and remind me to pep talk me and coach me back, where I'm like, okay, that's right. I am in the right place, or I have at least, improved big time. Right. So yeah, so it's not about perfection. It's about perseverance. Right. So I love that. I love it. I guess as we wind down here, I just want to ask you, I'm going to combine these last couple of questions. So I guess one of them, this is such an awkward question to ask people, but why would you recommend me to others is like, what sets me apart, but then also what would you say as like a takeaway for people watching this, where they're a little bit embarrassed or nervous to reach out, but they're right on the brink, and why should they choose me?
Right. Well, I think that we've talked about it throughout this, is like you had mentioned before, is you are setting things up for according to what people want and what people need, not so much of like, this is my curriculum and we have to stick to it. It's like, this is what you need specifically, so this is where we're going to go. And the one thing that I really appreciated with my time with you is like your patience,
Mm,
because like you knew where I wanted to go and you knew where I should be at some points, but I was like stuck. But you weren't like sitting there like pushing and being like, like, why aren't you at this
sure.
spot?
Did you
Like,
expect that a little bit from a coach or counselor?
I would think that, I don't know if I would have expected that,
Sure.
but let me think for a second. I don't know if I would have expected that, but like that's
Sure.
just something that I appreciated.
It was a
that
pleasant
just
surprise.
that patient, that patience of like, okay, this is where you are, and you like meet me at that
Sure,
place,
sure.
and not, I mean, of course you want to help me get out of that place, because that's what it's all about, like, is
Of
setting the
course.
goals and everything, but you're not beating me up saying like, why aren't you
Yep.
here? Because look at what we've done X, Y, and Z. I've laid it all out for you, and you should be here by now. Like, that was not how you did things.
Sure.
So
It's so good to hear that feedback. Thank you. I'm glad
right,
that worked for you.
yeah, so that's something that I appreciated. And
Yeah.
what was the last part to that was what?
Just, if people are nervous or they're on the fence, or embarrassed, to reach out for help. Just to tell everybody, this is completely confidential too. I only have people on here who are willing to be here. So
Right.
just keep in mind, I guess this is my piece of advice for them before you cut to yours. This is confidential. So even if it's somebody, I've had this happen more times than I can count, where someone signs up with me because they know someone I'm helping, or they know someone in my life, where I have to keep those boundaries very clear. I'm not going to say to so-and-so who knows you, oh yeah, I just had her in session the other day, she's struggling with her neighbor or whatever, right? That's one
Right.
encouragement, I guess, that would help people, right? To know that this is completely confidential.
Oh, right.
And then add to that whatever else you feel.
Well, actually, I wanted to say is that I think our society has made it so like everybody thinks like, oh, counseling or looking for a life coach is like there's something wrong with you, like that you can't do it yourself. And everybody wants to point the finger and be like, look at you, look at that person over there. Linda's going to see a life coach because she can't do it on her own. But in reality, like everybody needs like that accountability or assistance, guidance, walking through different situations in your life. We're not created to do it all on our own. So sometimes you need that, life coach to help you with it, because your family members and your friends aren't necessarily the people that are going to help you do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, like, don't worry about what other people are going to think. Step out and do it for yourself, because it's what you feel is best for you. And so you should do it. Good.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate just your time, all of your feedback. Hopefully that does encourage people. And I guess the last thing I would say too, for people who are inquiring, I was just, I have, after yours and my meeting today, I have a consultation. I had one the other day where, and I know you do the same with people that are inquiring. You guys can reach out and I do a free 15-minute phone consultation with you on the phone. So some people opt for video. I will do that if it fits in, if I'm not like booking you after, or I'm in the car or something for that 15 minutes, where at least you get a feel for me. I always tell people, my old supervisor, my mentor in the field, she always tells her clients, trying a new therapist or coach is like trying on a new pair of shoes. You got to try it out a couple times, feel if it's the right fit. And usually through the consultation, you can at least get an immediate inkling, right? And talk about what it is you need and want, because maybe I'm not the right fit. And I'll even tell you that, like, hey, I know someone who actually specializes in this area. I know them. Why don't I hook you up with them? Or, we talk about what I have to offer, what they're looking for, and if it's a good fit before you pay money and start moving forward. So that's always an option too. So, but But thank you so much again for your time and your feedback. It's always a proud moment for me to see past former clients who have succeeded and just, you know, again, none of us are perfect, but we're all on a journey, and you are
Right.
just so much further along, like a whole new transformed person. So
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely, it was a pleasure working with you, and maybe we'll do this again in the future for some sort of interview on a specific subject or something.
Right. Yeah, I look forward to that.
Cool. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Mhm.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.